Hey you guys, my name is Alisa Burke and I'm an artist and a teacher, and I'm all about sharing really simple creative concepts to transform your art and your coloring pages into something dynamic. And today I'm going to be showing you guys how to layer your markers. Now, I think layering and shading with colored pencils is pretty much known and I think pretty common, but I want you to see that you can do the same thing with those markers, and you can use a variety of different markers. It's really as simple as using light shades and dark shades and combining them and layering them together. Okay, so to begin with, you're going to start with your blank coloring page and your favorite markers. So I like using a variety of markers, from really high-end expensive ones to the cheap kids Crayola markers, and that's what I'm going to be using for this video. So I've got some of my Koi coloring brush pens, which are a little bit high-end in my opinion, and then I've got mixed in here are my daughter's actually little Crayola markers. Any kind of marker is going to work for this technique. So you are going to want to start by kind of having an idea of the colors that you're going to use in your coloring page. And the reason why you want to have an idea is because layering those markers really lends itself to starting with the light colors first and then going back over and adding darker shades of that color. Okay, so you can see I've got that light pink down. I've filled my entire flower with that shade of pink. Now what I'm going to do is go back in and add a darker shade of pink. And I want you guys to see that I'm just now picking another type of marker to go over some areas. And what I know about shading and drawing, since I do a lot of drawing, is that there's some really simple, easy ways to add just a darker shade of color to add just some life, some dimension, some pop to those flat line drawings. And this is what can really bring your coloring pages to life, as well as drawings to life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick all these areas that have lines. I'm going to use this area in between the petals to add some darker markers, darker color. And I'm just going to go over it real quickly. Okay, so you can see that really quickly this has started to change quite a bit. It has a lot of depth, it has a lot of interest, it's not as flat anymore. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna go into it one more time with a darker and even darker pink. And I'm gonna just keep this dark pink towards the middle. So I've got that illusion of depth, of interest. When you look at a flower, there's a lot going on with color, and just by adding this one area of dark color, you immediately pull the eye in, and that line drawing begins to really come to life. Now I'm going to layer a couple more colors on here. I'm going to actually go into these little dots right here with just a dark red. And the cool thing about layering markers, especially if it's real subtle, is that you can on that surface achieve really interesting colors and tones and shades to your markers. Even the simple cheap ones are going to look and feel differently than if you were just using them straight on that surface without layering. Okay, so there's our first flower. Now see how it's got that illusion of shading around the edges? You could go really bold with that shading, or you can do what I did, which is subtle, but right now we've got 3 layers of pink on this flower. That light layer, the one in between, a little bit of a darker pink, and then that real dark pink in the middle, which immediately, really quickly creates something that looks and feels way more dynamic. It's not as flat looking anymore, and it's got a lot of contrast to it. So I'm going to work my way across this surface and pick areas to shade in each of my flowers and leaves. Okay, so I finished up my page and I've filled all of my flowers with a whole bunch of that layering of my markers. And the result is actually a surface that feels and looks a lot more like a drawing or an illustration and less like a coloring page. So when you layer those colors, when you layer those markers, that light first and then that dark, you have the ability to really add a lot of pop, a lot of dimension to these areas. And they can be super bold, like I've done here with yellow and orange. Or it can be a lot more subtle, like I've done with some of these blues, where you can see those 2 shades of blue, but there's a lot of subtlety in that. So this is just a fun way to put those markers, those any kind of markers to use and really pull out a lot of contrast and depth in those coloring pages.